Intro to the human body. If you guys, I highly recommend, even you guys that are going off to Vantage to take a class in the human body. A lot of you guys actually have to anyway. If you do, it's typically called an anatomy and physiology course. Anatomy and physiology. So it might be a good idea to know what these words mean. They sound big and fancy. So it's basically, these are the words that are used to describe any kind of basic intro to human body. The word anatomy simply refers to structure. You know, I said I'm going to make you guys memorize all the bones and the major bones in the body. Well, that is anatomy. That is the structure. What are you physically made up of? What are your pieces, parts? Okay, so your bones, your organs, all that. What is the structure of the human body? Physiology is concerned with function. Okay, so structure and function. Structure and function. The function of those organs. So when you take a class on the human body, it's typically called anatomy and physiology. If you take the anatomy side of it is what is the structure, the physiology side is what does that structure do, kind of deal. So those are what those words mean. And you never ever start out a course or a class in this, and what's Mrs. Fisher's favorite word?
Homeostasis.
Yes, homeostasis. Always, 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 this is one of the first words you'll learn about in any anatomy class and physiology class, homeostasis. And it's real simple, guys. You know, we as humans have to maintain certain levels of everything, whether it's temperature, whether it's glucose levels, whether it's calcium levels. We have to maintain certain ideal set ranges of everything in our body and temperature and everything else. Okay? When it gets out of whack, we better have something in place to bring it back to normal or else we're going to be in trouble. Okay? The word homeostasis refers to the fact that organisms have to maintain a constant internal environment. In other words, your insides better be different from the outside and they better be stable. Okay. Perfect example, guys, is temperature. You know, 98.6 degrees is what you want the thermometer to read. Okay, and so your body that's the homeostatic temperature for your body. That's the temperature that you want to constantly maintain. Now, that's different for every organism. You know, if you take your dog or cat to the vet, their temperature, their homeostatic temperature range is different from ours. And I think they're a few degrees warmer, typically. I think it's not 98.6, it's like 100 point something is their norm. Okay, so all organisms have different set kind of boundary, or set levels, but every organism has whatever they need to survive. Okay, so constant internal environment. Now, how in the world is that maintained? Two ways. Most of the way homeostasis is maintained in your body are by something called negative feedback mechanisms. Sounds like a big fancy word. Negative feedback mechanisms. When I think of negative feedback mechanisms, I think of the furnace in my home. You know, it's this time of year, even though we don't want to be using our furnace, we probably still have to. But anyway, think of how a furnace works. Okay, you have a certain temperature that your thermostat is set to on the wall. Okay, my family yells at me because it's like 66 and they think I'm trying to freeze them out of the home because I'm cheap. Because I am. Okay, so 66 is what I like to set the house at. Okay, other people, 68 is probably normal. Okay, so 68 degrees is what the temperature of the inside of my home is. Well, when that temperature gets too low, that furnace is going to kick on to bring it back to normal. In other words, negative feedback mechanisms are the mechanisms that are in your body too, that if something gets out of whack, it's going to bring it back to normal. Something gets out of whack, It's going to bring it back to normal. This is like a good way to visualize it. Let's say this line's representing some set point of what your body needs to be. Maybe that's 98.6 degrees. If something gets out of whack, which we live in a changing environment, so you know it's going to, negative feedback mechanisms are mechanisms that are going to oppose the initial stimulus. In other words, they're going to work opposite of what the stimulus was. If it went up, it's going to go back down. So the negative feedback mechanism would be what's in place to bring it back. It could go out of whack this way, and the negative feedback mechanism would be in place to bring it back to normal. Body temperature is done this way. Again, when we're 98.6, but if our body temperature gets too warm, we sweat. Sweating is considered a negative feedback mechanism. Sweating is actually there for a good reason, guys. It's meant to cool you off. Okay? I know it's stinky and sweaty, but, it's meant to cool you down. It is a cooling mechanism. So sweating is a negative feedback mechanism. Other way, let's say we go outside right now. Unfortunately, it's April, but, it's cold. We have mechanisms in place in our body to bring us back to normal. What is it? You shiver. If you guys realize this, but when you shiver, it's actually your muscle cells, which are fibers. Your muscle cells are kind of funny. They kind of bundle in fibers. When you shiver on purpose to move those muscle fibers back and forth across each other. Well, just like my hands are getting warm right now, your muscles will too because of friction. That's what shivering is meant for. It is really meant for those muscles to warm up, physically warm up and generate heat. So shivering is a negative feedback mechanism. Okay. Hey, another classic example. Does anybody have questions about that? That one's pretty straightforward. Another classic example of where negative feedback works in your body is blood glucose levels. Okay, this is a little more complicated. Blood glucose levels. Well, you gotta keep a certain ideal level of glucose in your blood. By the way, remember glucose, what is that again? It's a sugar. You want sugar in your blood. You want a certain amount of sugar in your blood. You don't want too much, you don't want too little. Well, you better have some mechanisms in place in your body, some ways that your body maintains that optimal glucose level. What's the disorder that can happen if you don't? Yep, diabetes, I'll put in parentheses, is the disorder that's really common that people have that those people aren't able to maintain these optimal glucose levels in their body. Okay, and I'll get to that in a minute. They do it a different way. There's a couple ways your glucose levels are maintained, but here's pretty much the big one. People get the shots if these don't work. You actually have you guys naturally make a couple of hormones. One of those hormones is named insulin. You naturally make it. Everybody does. Or you should. Okay. So you naturally make this insulin. This hormone has the job of taking glucose, taking it out of your blood, so from your blood into your cells. Okay, let's kind of draw a little picture here. You guys have blood vessels running all through you. That's a blood vessel I just drew, a portion of one. You have a bunch of cells that I'm drawing as little circles everywhere. You guys are like made up of trillions of cells. Well, every one of those cells needs food. They need glucose. Remember, if you guys remember from many a chapter ago, we talked about a process called cell respiration. Cell respiration is a process where every one of these cells takes glucose and they make ATP from it. They make the energy, okay? It's the way your cells make energy. Well, your cells have to get that glucose. It's not just going to magically come to them. Insulin is a hormone that is going to take this glucose from your blood, which they got there by when you ate it, and it's going to send it to these cells. Insulin's important. Okay, most normal people make insulin no problem. There's another hormone that's not talked about as much when it comes to diabetes. That's called glucagon. It does the opposite. If you need to put sugar into your bloodstream, you have another hormone called glucagon that'll do just that. The reason you don't hear about glucagon as much is because eating a candy bar does the same thing. Okay, so usually people don't get shots of glucagon because all they need to do is eat a candy bar. Okay, but that's why you hear people getting shots of insulin, because if your body does not make insulin, all that glucose doesn't get sent to your cells. Think about it, guys. If your cells don't get glucose, you're not making ATP, you're gonna get tired a lot. Actually, a lot of other things can happen too, but you're gonna get tired a lot. By the way, these two hormones are made in your pancreas. Nobody knows what your pancreas does. Everyone's like, oh, I know I have this organ called a pancreas, but I don't know what it does. One of the huge job of your pancreas, and it has a couple others, but is to make these two hormones. People with diabetes, sometimes they have diabetes because their pancreas is damaged or not working right. And if their pancreas is damaged, they're not making the hormones needed to control these glucose levels. So there's a couple reasons you can get diabetes. That's one of them. By the way, speaking of diabetes, there's actually two types of diabetes. There's something called type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is also called juvenile diabetes, and type 2 is called adult diabetes. Okay? Obviously, hence the name, you're born with type 1 diabetes. Okay, you guys even have some people in your class who have type 1 diabetes that I know you know of. Yeah. Yeah, a couple. Well, okay, yes. Blair is a perfect example. Blair Balmy is a perfect example of somebody who has type 1. She was born with it. Okay, this was out of her control entirely. Okay, there's a couple reasons you could get born. You are born with type 1 diabetes. I don't know if it was the pancreas that maybe is not functioning. You're not able. Your pancreas doesn't have the right cells that can make insulin. Whatever. Okay, but this is like more of a genetic deal. Type 2 diabetes is the one that, in most cases, it comes about later in life, and it's usually because of, not always, but it's usually because of poor diet, overweight, and it's common. It's very common for older people to have diabetes. My grandparents both did. It's very common. There could be other reasons that you get type 2 diabetes. You could also have a... but that's usually typically the reason. I'll keep it simple. Okay. The main difference, I'll keep it simple. Insulin typically is not made in people with type 1 diabetes. People with type 2 diabetes, actually their bodies actually produce enough insulin, but the insulin that your body makes doesn't work right. That's the difference between these two types of diabetes. So type 1, your body's typically not even making insulin at all, probably because your pancreas is a little messed up. People with type 2, their bodies are making insulin, but because of other environmental reasons, your body doesn't really use the insulin the way it should. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Guys, these are so common. Chances are you guys know somebody with diabetes. This is why, this is the difference between the two. I think that's important. You see that a lot. One thing I want to say is, you're probably thinking to yourself, this is what I thought when I saw this, is, why is it so bad to have a little sugar in your blood? I kind of said to myself, well, what's the big deal? Let me draw you a picture. This is why it's bad. On the top, I'm drawing a picture of a vessel. I'm drawing two vessels. The one on top is going to be the normal vessel. A normal blood vessel. I'm making dots here. Each one of those dots is a sugar molecule. I'll even label it sugar. A glucose molecule. Oops. Okay, I'm trying to point to the dot. Top vessel has some sugar in it and has a perfect amount of sugar in it. That's normal. People with diabetes, because their insulin doesn't work, Their insulin's supposed to be, again, pulling the sugar out of their vessel, but it doesn't. So people with diabetes have a ton of sugar in their vessels. And so you're thinking, big deal. So it's carrying around a little extra sugar. Why would that be such a big deal? Well, here's the problem. Here's one of the problems. There's multiple, but here's one of the biggies. You guys know most of your body is made up of water. You have water everywhere. Water, 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 surrounding all your vessels. You have cells, water, spaces, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just writing little water molecules everywhere. Well, do you guys remember learning about a process called osmosis earlier in the year? Okay, well, answer this. We have two vessels here. One on top just has a little bit of sugar. The one on bottom has a ton of sugar. Water is always going to move from an area of higher concentration to lower concentration. Which of these vessels is going to receive more water? The bottom one. Water will move into this vessel to a greater degree than it will up into the vessel above. You'll just get maybe a little bit of water moving up above, but a lot of water moving in the bottom one. Okay. Well, vessels are kind of fragile in a lot of spots. All that extra water coming in is going to make them kind of, pressure. Typically, people with diabetes also have high blood pressure. It kind of goes hand in hand. So high blood pressure is usually one of the results. High blood pressure is usually one of the things that happens in people with diabetes. So then your next thought is, well, okay, who cares? So my vessels are carrying a little extra water and pressure with them. Well, that's not so good. Because what ends up happening is they'll damage, they'll break. Your vessels can only handle a certain amount of pressure to the point where they'll burst. If you've noticed people with diabetes and who have had diabetes for like a long time, like their whole life, you'll notice that in some of their extremities, like feet and hands, they'll kind of die. Like some of the cells, they'll just start to look kind of Their nails will fall out, especially in the feet. This happens more in the feet. What happens is if the blood vessels are getting damaged, the blood is going to not be able to nourish the cells in the area, and the cells that make up your feet and nails and all that are just going to start dying. So people actually have bad circulation problems with diabetes, and you see it most in the feet because, well, that makes sense because that's where gravity's pulling everything, because those are the vessels that are going to burst easiest. What else?
How does it affect your sports?
Your sports? What do you mean?
Like, what does it affect, like, how much it exercise? Well, you don't have as much energy, so that you can really be in sports.
Sports would be tough. You'd have to monitor it really, really, really closely. It can happen, but because when you play sports, your body is basically taking all this glucose it needs to take glucose at a really high rate into your cells, so your cells have energy. So if you have diabetes, you better really find a very efficient way of getting that glucose from your blood into your cells, and it would be tougher. It would definitely be tougher because your body's under more demands if you're exercising. So yeah, it would definitely affect people more. Yeah.
When I played baseball, they took Chucky out every 8 weeks to get on the candy bar and up mountain too.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was.
Was that elementary?
I thought it was stupid, but I didn't have diabetes.
Yeah.
We had to stop
'Cause
the
he was
game,
drinking,
and
yeah.
come in, give him candy bar and pop.
He was
Then we
drinking
go
a
back.
whole bottle of pop every inning. It was bad.
It sucked. I might
Wow.
break you.
He's had this for a while then. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
How could it cause a stroke? Like when Grandpa, his
And he only
monitor
played first
stopped
base.
working, like it kept reading that his blood pressure was fine, but really, or blood sugar or whatever was fine, and it just went through the roof.
How the heck
and
does
he
he make
didn't
it
know
through
because it just
football?
kept monitoring it fine, and
I don't.
he ended
That's
up
'cause his
having
mom
a stroke.
Well, what a stroke is actually a broken vessel in your brain or a blocked
So
vessel in your
it's
brain.
because so much
Yeah,
water
what's
was
that
coming
cleaning
in.
up?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure
What
about
about
that.
gestational diabetes? Because my mom
Ah,
has that.
yes, I had that as well. When you get everything's screwed up when you're pregnant, but when you're pregnant, the extra little thing inside of you, sorry, the extra little ball of joy inside of you really drains you. And it is harder for your own body, your own pancreas to work efficiently when you have something else there, when you have another being
You
there.
think I can't get pregnant?
It basically, no, it actually, it causes, it causes the effect where you're not able to take that sugar from your blood into your cells as efficiently as you would if you weren't pregnant. I had gestational diabetes too. It's funny, once the baby pops out, you're totally normal.
Yeah, that's how my mom
It's
was.
just the
She
extra
was always-
strain. It's really
She
crazy.
was always eating candy bars and everything like that, or else she'd be really, really shaky and have to just like sit down almost.
I've never realized
No
how much guys
housework.
don't have to worry about
We
it.
got stuff
It's funny. They said there's something very similar in the second period class because we got talking about pregnancy somehow.
Sure.
I'm glad I'm the guy because I don't have to worry about it.
So anyway, that's why diabetes is so bad. And this is the weird thing about diabetes. If you know anybody who's diabetic, they probably have like a bunch of symptoms. I probably just went over a couple. If you have really, really bad diabetes, you'll go blind for many, many years. Again, the vessels in your eyes break. If the vessels in your eye break, the cells around it aren't getting nourished and they're going to die. So you're going to go
You said for
blind.
many, many years.
Yeah, does that mean you can get your sight back?
Whenever.
I doubt it because I think once I don't know.
Wait, what?
I don't think so. I've never heard of
You
that.
say sight?
Sight.
I was gonna say, my grandpa had a stroke. When he had a stroke, he lost all sight in his left eye and he got it back.
And that could be a different reason than the diabetes people losing.
It might have been because of his high blood pressure, though.
Yeah. But it's all tied together. It's all tied together. All right.
Let me go.
No.
First day back.
No, I don't care. All right. Positive feedback mechanisms.
This was easy.
Okay, here's the deal. This is funny. Oh, that's right. Now I'm leading to why we got talking about pregnancy with this. Believe it or not, there are some other mechanisms in your body that work the complete opposite than negative feedback. Here's the deal. Let's say this line represents some set point you want your body to be at for something. Let's say something gets out of whack, okay, which typically always does. In negative feedback, you would have had something go on in your body to bring it back to normal. Not positive feedback. Positive feedbacks are kind of weird. It's almost like a stimulus to keep going further and further away than what you're supposed to be at. You're like, why in the world would I want something in my body to go further and further away from the norm? These are not as common. These are not as common, and they don't last forever. Speaking of childbirth. Contractions at childbirth. Okay. For all you boys who do not know what that means,
And he just
there comes a point around that 9-month time where baby wants out. Okay, baby wants out. And it sends a signal through your nervous system to start these contractions. Contractions are like muscular movements to try to get the thing out. Believe me, you absolutely have to have contractions to get rid of the baby. Okay, otherwise it's just going to stay there. Yeah, so anyway, here's the deal though. If you guys know it, you guys should know this. When a woman starts having contractions, they get stronger and stronger and stronger
she means more painful.
until the baby comes out. That's a positive feedback mechanism. Those contractions better get stronger and stronger and stronger, or baby's never going to come out. Once baby pops out, negative feedback will kick in to remove the contractions. But this is a classic example of a mechanism in your body that once stimulated keeps going further and further and further and further until the job is done. Contractions, childbirth. Another classic example for all you guys, not just women, blood clotting. When you guys get a boo-boo, let's say you get a big boo-boo on your arm. Okay, well, your body does more than you think it does. When you get a boo-boo on your arm, you've got to have like a mass amount of cells go to that area to fix it. Some cells fix it. Some cells clean up any bacteria. You got a lot going on inside of there. Anyways, you have this mass movement of cells to go to your boo-boo, and once the job is done, they'll stop. But that's also positive feedback. Literally, the cells will just, the mechanisms to send the cells to that area will keep getting stronger and stronger until the job is done. So that's another example. But again, positive feedback mechanisms you don't hear about as much in the body. You hear far more about negative feedback mechanisms. All right, I'm keeping going because I didn't realize till today that you guys aren't even going to see me on Friday.
No, it's fine. Well, Either.
All next week.
We're coming back for
know.
8th period.
Oh, but this is
Yeah,
fun
I'm
stuff.
Right.
I'm not. You can't.
All right, somebody tell me what a liver does. Where is your liver?
That's it, Tracy.
Right in
Yeah.
Here.
It's kind of all in this. It's big.
Yeah.
It's big, but it's not the biggest organ of your body.
No, lungs.
No.
No.
Does anybody know the biggest organ
Intestines.
of your? It's not an obvious one. It's a trivial pursuit question.
Time
It's
out.
the-
Small intestine. Pancreas. I don't know.
no,
Nope.
Large
Biggest what?
intestine.
the biggest organ of your body.
Brain.
Rectum.
No. You're gonna think it's like a trick question because it kind of is. Anybody know?
Yeah.
Here, wake Kenny up. Ask if he knows.
Kenny.
Kenny, what's the largest organ of the body?
Respiratory system. Nerves.
No, nothing, and nothing lungs or anything. It's your
The body.
No.
skin.
That's not.
Your skin.
Either way.
Your skin is the largest organ of your body. I know it's a trick question, but I swear one of these days you'll be asked that. Okay. Anyway, liver is this organ. Totally off subject, but now the liver is your organ. When you mention this word homeostasis, you always want to talk about the liver because if there is one organ in your body that is probably the most important for maintaining homeostasis, it's this one. Important for homeostasis. Your liver is, the weird thing about the liver is it does a lot of different things. You have a lot of organs in your body, but they all usually have just one or two jobs. Yeah, your heart pumps blood. Your pancreas makes some hormones and some other enzymes. Your liver is does a lot. Here's what I mean by that. Your liver makes something called bile. Yeah, bile's not pretty, but bile. If you didn't have bile, you guys would never be able to eat any of those juicy French fries. Bile is a substance that is there. It's sent to your digestive system it breaks down fat. Okay? You would not be able to eat fatty French fries or anything fat if you didn't have a liver producing the substance called bile. Okay, so that's one thing. That's one really good thing.
What about metabolism? Does that go hand in hand with how fast you break things down?
You know what? That's kind of, I don't know enough about what makes one person's metabolism different from another. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's related to liver function or not. Your liver also has a job of breaking down toxins that enter you. The foods you eat have a ton of preservatives in them, some more than others. Try to avoid foods with a lot of preservatives, guys, by the way. We're talking like the ones, they're easy and convenient to eat, but a lot of the foods that are already like frozen foods, frozen pizzas, all of those type of frozen foods that are already pre-made for you often have to have a lot of preservatives in them. Preservatives are like chemicals. And so those are, believe me, I'm not perfect. I eat a ton of them, but in an ideal world, fresh is better.
So pizza rolls?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, sorry.
See, I do that. but
Sorry.
I do that, but wrestling season, all I eat is fruit and everything. So
Fruit and vegetables are like the best thing you can eat. Fresh meats, fresh vegetables, fresh fruit. Not anything that's been
Fresh steak.
processed.
Yum.
Things that have not been
You know what the
processed.
Texas Roadhouse is right now?
No.
What
Alright.
up?
Yeah, Leah's kind of dominating the tournament, if anybody is. So. Okay, so your liver's there to help you break down that. By the way, toxins. Yeah, just let it there. Other toxins can include things like prescription drugs, alcohol, all these other things that your body doesn't like. I mean, your liver is part of that whole world. Here's another one. Shh. Oh gosh. I'm gonna hurry. I'm gonna kind of. I think I'm almost done anyway. Your body naturally makes ammonia. Ugh. Okay, that's the first thing I thought of, like ammonia. Like you're like talking about that stuff like that's in a Windex bottle. It's like a cleaner, kind of.
That's no. Isn't it?
Well, this is probably one of the big jobs of your liver when it comes to homeostasis. Ammonia is made in your body every time you guys eat protein. When you guys eat a big giant steak, when you guys eat anything with a lot of protein, your body has to break it down. Well, that's a long process. One of the byproducts of protein digestion is ammonia, believe it or not. Well, your body does, you can't have that much ammonia floating around in you. Your liver has the job of taking this ammonia and converting it to urea. Now, urea should sound familiar. Yeah, urea. Urea. Where do you find a lot of urea if you wanted some? Right now, right here, right now. Where would you go?
Ladder.
Your urine. Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Why can't we be around ammonia?
Why can't we what?
Why can't we breathe in ammonia? Whatever it is?
I don't think it will. If you breathe in, I don't know. I don't know if that's a different. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just the levels of it. I'm not sure. It's a good question.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it like in old buildings or whatever? Or old enclosed moist buildings or something? There's like ammonia.
That's asbestos, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't
that's
it?
what
Am I
it is.
thinking of that?
Anhydrous ammonia will kill you.
Okay, there's lots of bad things out there. Anyway, one of your jobs of your liver is to take that ammonia and turn it into urea. Then that urea will enter your bloodstream and ship off to this organ, which I want you guys to tell me what it is. What's the organ in your body that is going to clean your blood and then send it out?
No,
Your
Don't call,
kidneys.
don't call me.
Is that what your
Yeah.
kidneys? So your kidneys have the job of filtering out your blood, one thing of which urea is in, and basically having you get rid of it. One more job and I'm done.
This kid randomly wakes up and answers the question.
I answered that
She
one.
could have like 2 babies.
I told you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, not only do your hormones play a job in regulating the sugar in your blood, your liver does something too. Think of your liver as a storage tank. Shh. You have all this glucose. When you guys eat a big giant meal, like a huge big giant meal with lots of glucose, that glucose obviously can't stay floating around in your blood, but what's going to happen is it's going to send to a little storage area, because if you ever fast for like an extended period of time, let's say you go for a day without eating, you're still fine, and that's because this glucose gets sent to your liver and it's stored, but it's not stored as glucose, it's stored as something else called glycogen. Okay, I know I don't want you guys learning too many big words, but glucose on a molecular level looks like this. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6-sided molecule.
Oh, just kidding.
Okay? Glucose, when it gets sent to the liver for storage, starts to link up together. So you get all these glucose molecules all linking together, and that's how glucose is stored in your liver. That's a good thing, because like I said, one of these days when you go for 12 to 24 hours without eating for some reason, whether you're sick or whether, whatever, you want to be able to still give all of your cells glucose. So what will happen is a little signal will be sent to your liver from your nervous system to convert some of that glycogen back into glucose, ship it in your blood, send it to your cells. This is why humans can actually go for pretty long periods of time without eating, because we have this ability to store some of those nutrients in our liver. That's pretty big. There are some other organisms that don't have this ability, so they have to keep eating all the time, like cows and things like that. They don't have that ability like we do.
All the time.
So I know you guys are teenagers and you do eat all the time, but technically you don't need to. All right, I'm done.
Eating and eating.
And
Cows have like when I grow up, I'm honestly probably like